Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And now that we've got the showcases out of the way for the two brand new characters, it's now time to jump into Beatdown Battle. EX2 to get that final dupe of the free-to-play Shinsha, who she's okay. She's not super great, but she's fine, and she's definitely free-to-play. This stage has some interesting things going on. First off of which is their HP, which for an AoE EX2 stage is just shy of 1,000,000. So we are very quickly reaching the point where EX2s are out of the reach for a lot of newer players because they just don't have a way to do 1,000,000 damage. Even with the new team, they need gear, they need so much stuff. But that is not the only thing that this stage has, because they have this new reverse weakening effect. And what that means is that if you attempt to apply a debuff, whether it be from a skill, from one of your protection or battle unit's traits, anything that would be considered a debuff, ult resistance down, weakness resistance down, element damage down, crit resistance, pierce resistance, synergy resistance, all of that is immediately changed to a buff for the enemy. So if you attempt to use maybe Fern and her 100% ult resistance down, Shuna and Frey and Hinata will instantly have a 100% ult resistance up buff. So it means that, yeah, you're not going to be able to nuke them very well. It applies for all debuffs, all of them. So it really limits what you can do in terms of damage support, because there are people whose entire kits are based off debuffs, or half of their skills are debuffs, and they're not going to really work that well here. You can still kind of get around it, which we'll show, but it's really kind of you really got to think about what you're bringing on the team now. And then on top of that, they can nullify your status effect. They can recover their own status effects, so burn, stuns, vengeance, your enamors, your invincibilities, your taunts, like they can get rid of all of those. Your shields, your barriers from Festive Memories, they can remove those just straight up. So they have a lot of things going on where you can't really cheese them that well unless you're going to do some bullshit like triple stun stuff, and I might do that for its own video because it takes forever. But today we're just going to go in with a number of different teams and what can clear out EX2. This will be at least 2 parts, because the second part is pretty much going to be Himmel. What can Himmel lead that can take on this fight apart from the actual Frieren team, because that will be in this video. But let's just go ahead and jump in. Okay, so starting off, we're going to use the meta as it exists right now. Veldora, free-to-play Shinsha, Lumi. We've got Octogram Lumi, because we are, again, stacking a little bit. We have an AoE character. We have the New Year's Blessing Shinsha, because she's got the physical allies ult damage, and then crit damage, which the stage is wanting you to crit. So she's going to work very well. We're going to activate the crit rate from the free-to-play Shinsha. And then we've got Summer Memories Shizu. She's definitely a replaceable character, but I wanted to try and find someone that was fairly old that people may have access to, rather than trying to bring some brand new character that people might not have. You can bring Wind Trainee to Alt Rush and to Orb Change and to give the Wind Attack. You could bring 2nd Anniversary Hinata for the Wind Attack. You could do a number of different things in that 5th slot that Shizu's in. It doesn't really matter all that much. You could bring Carrion. He's got more crit damage than what Shinsha's giving, but not more than what New Year's Shinsha is giving. So, turn 1, we can't really do anything here. We're going to bring in New Year's Shinsha, and we'll simply send these blue orbs, because they're just going to get us our protector, which is kind of important for this team, getting him activated as soon as possible. Okay, that works. We have 3 Shizu and 3 Shinshas, so we can really take our pick, but with Shizu being fire, let's get her out. But you can see, there's a huge amount of nerfs they put on us right now. So if we take a look, we have a 50% down on Pierce rate and Synergy rate, and then a 15% down on Pierce power and Synergy power, and Guard power. So if you're guarding, you'll take still a bit more damage than normal, and if you Pierce or Synergy, it's going to be lowered by 15%, which does start to stack up as you go into this fight. And then your chance to do it is now a 50-50 coin flip. So if you're going to rely on Pearson's energy, your damage is going to be a bit nerfed, and there's not a guarantee that you're actually going to hit it. Kind of unfortunate here. But let's go ahead and steal with Lumi. Let's get some stacking alt and AoE buffs on. The AoE buff also has the nice addition of 50% alt gauge increase on these orbs. And if we count this, where Veldora is going to give us the free alt gauge for the Shinsha and the Lumi, then we're going to be capped out on Lumi on turn 2, which is great. So we could technically nuke turn 3 and we'd be pretty good because Lumi does way too much damage for EX2. But I do want to show you guys what moderately powered up Lumi can accomplish. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, there's the EX ult. We're going to make back with the trait from Octagram Lumi, so we'll get another Protector Veldora next turn. So 30k a hit right there. Pretty good. And then, yeah, that works fairly well. So, boom. Okay, yep. Thank you for there. Thank you very much. We are using the skill point charm on blues right now with Veldora because apart from his 30 points that he gives you every turn, blues don't give you a lot. So you really got to make do with what it's going to give you. But let's do another AoE buff, and then let's actually use Veldora so that we can swap out Lumi, and then have another blue orb immediately come in. We'll do this, and then we have Shinsha, and then we can simply use the alt swap for Summer Shizu. Another reason why I brought her. And then we can go ahead and send this, make back as many points as we can. So it's 43 plus 77 plus the 30 additional. So we're going to be at 150, and worked out pretty well. And then on turn 4, we can nuke. This fight generally wants you to go to turn 5 before you kill, but you can certainly do it before that. So if you're maybe short on points, you're not ready to nuke, you want a few extra buffs with Lumi, you can definitely just wait another turn and go to turn 5. But I think we're going to be just fine here. So we will take out Octagram Lumi. We're done buffing with her. We will do the weakness strike. We'll do the alt resistance. Well, see, maybe we do this out of order. Boom, boom, boom. We have 15 points. Yeah, we need 30. Okay, so we actually have to wait another turn then. So we'll get the weakness strike. We'll get the physical buff for Lumi herself, and then we can send her away again after we use Veldora. That way, when we take her out, we get a guaranteed blue, which was already guaranteed blue to begin with. But let's see, you come out of here, and then we will once again do the alt swap. Boom. And I guess we'll send this on Frey, and we'll even it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so now we'll have 137 points. We will definitely now be ready to nuke. So we can actually get a few more stacks of Lumi in probably as well. Okay, yeah, that works pretty well. We couldn't use the New Year Shinsha buff because that's an alt buff and that would not hold. We could hold the crit damage, but I kind of want the full power of the buff, right? So, you come in now for Shizu, because we've used that. We will use both Shinsha's buffs now. And do we have enough points to use one more from Octagram Lumi? We do have enough for one more stack of the alt. So, let's do that. Boom. Let's do the 60% attack from Veldora. And then we can take a look at what Lumi's got going for her. So she has 80% attack or alt damage from New Year Shinsha, 40% stacked from Octagram Lumi, and then on herself, she has 10% attack from Barrier Stone, apparently, 60% attack from Veldora, 60% weakness strike from Shizu, 80% physical and 100% physical damage from herself, crit damage, and then guaranteed crits. So we should do some fairly good damage with this Lumi, and it will be way too much that they can even attempt to live from. So let's take a look at this. And obviously, a lot of these units are substitutable. Octagram Lumi, not necessary. Summer Shizu, not necessary. New Year Shinsha, like, she's going to be probably one of the easiest characters. One, because her buff is relatively cheap, 55 points, and it works, and none of them are debuffs. None of these skills are debuffs. And Lumi does 5.7 million, and they have less than 1 million HP. So, yeah, definitely works out fairly well for us. But that is like the meta team. Again, substitutions can abound between 1, 2, 3 characters. This Shinsha is going to be kind of important because she's the one giving crit rate, but she's also, you can take her out for maybe like Fire Millum if you wanted to. Another character, the Masked Hero, technically can work, but that debuff is going to work against you, so you'd have to hold it or something. But, you know, there's a few options. Alright, the team that people are most likely to have right now coming out of the Frieren Collab can definitely do it. Himmel, going to be a really, really good protector for this fight, even though oranges are technically nerfed. Free-to-play Stark, Fern. We're going to bring Light Lumi, just because she's a very old character that people might have. She's replaceable between any other kind of buffing character for Frieren. And then for people that don't have Raphael, you can bring Bride Shuna, because she's just a triple orb stealer. The Raphael skills here, not going to be super useful, so it's actually not that terrible of a loss if you don't have Raphael to begin with. So the important things to note about running this team is that, 1, don't use Stark's Taunt, because that's going to put permanent synergy resistance on them, because it's a debuff skill. You don't want to do that. We want the synergy power. So here, we're going to send the 4 blues, we're going to get access to Himmel turn 1. If you can't do that, then I would probably just sub Lumi out for an orange orb changer, whoever works for you, and you can just do 6 blues turn 1. But you can't use Stark's Taunt, because that's permanent synergy resistance. Here, we got triple orbs, so we're going to steal with Shuna. You could steal with Hinata, or the hero, or Raphael. I mean, if you have Raphael, or the new Lumi, but at that point, you're probably just going to use Lumi to kill anyways. But it's important that on turn 3, we use the Unleash Magic skill from Frieren. Why is that? Because it takes 3 turns to activate, but she has that element resistance down debuff that gets applied when it activates, and you don't want that. You want that to go away on turn 6. So you're actually going to nuke turn 7. So we activate it now, that way the debuffs are on turn 6, and then when it clicks over to turn 7, those are gone. However, you can retain the attack buff and the magic state, so you can actually synergy fully without having that nerf on you. So it's important you use that skill on turn 3. And then after that, I mean, it's just whatever you have to do. Stark is here to alt swap away. It's fairly simple. He works on the team. He just can't really use his other skill. We're just going to send Frieren to the back now and just steal here and get a Fern alt. Why? Well, why not? The other thing about Fern is that her alt resistance down and EX alt damage, you can't use that skill, because it's a 1-turn buff. You can't hold the EX alt damage, and you also don't want to give the enemies 100% alt resistance. So you can only use Fern's second skill, which is the synergy power for everybody, and then the personal magic buff. So you can use some things, you can not use some things on this team. So that's why I brought Light Lumi to be another kind of buffing character. If you have Visions of Coleus Violet, she would work a lot better, because she would convert turn 1, and she'd give you a magic buff, which Frieren doesn't have. So very easy swap right there, immediately. So turn 5, it's going to click over to turn 6 here, and then after Frey gets alted, okay, cool, or alts us, and then here's the magic state. The debuff, you can see, is immediately now a buff for them, but we're not going to nuke. We're going to let that fall off, and we're going to keep Frieren in the back so we can retain that 100% buff and the magic states. We're just going to burn off turn 6, wait for those element buffs to go away, and then turn 7 is where we are going to nuke. And turn 7, if you don't kill them, they generally end up killing like at least 2 people, because they get really, really strong, and they ult everybody, and they have single target buffs. So turn 7 is like where you're really looking to kill, if you're going to go with some kind of stacking team. But you can see, like, Lumi's half dead. She's almost dead now. But now it's turn 7. Those element buffs are gone, but we still have access to Frieren's full slate of buffs here. The magic state is still on. So we'll use the second skill from Fern, Frieren's own buff, and then the Light Lumi buff, one more stack of Himmel, and then we'll go ahead and nuke. So we are fairly built up. The only things we haven't used here is Fern's first skill and then the synergy down, because that would help the enemies, right? So we're just going to go ahead and nuke AoE Frieren, and she does 1.3 million damage, and the enemies have 940 something, so definitely doable, and you can get around that whole debuff thing while activating most of your power. So this is a fairly realistic team for a lot of people. Again, Lumi is a very substitutable option. If you have Visions of Coleus Violet, that'll work super duper well. Stark being the free-to-play unit, good. I mean, if you don't have Fern, then you just bring some other character that's going to give you synergy power. You could bring Divine General Diablo or something and make that work. Or, yeah, it's just, you could really bring anything at that point, because you can pierce, you can crit, you can synergy because of Frieren's magic buff, that she takes away all those nerfs. So you could literally do anything you want with this team if you don't have even Fern to go with it. Alright, next up, Exalted Champions can do EX2. It can't go any higher than that, and you're going to need some pretty strong buffs along the way. But we're going to use Velzard, Veldora, Exalted Champion Rimuru, Octogram Lumi for the AoE and the stacking ult damage buffs again. If you don't have her, you could bring somebody else, Wind Attack, some kind of element buffer, but actually we're already getting element buffs, so maybe not that. Some kind of crit unit, I guess you could do that. The Masked Hero being our AoE character is going to be kind of important. And then we've brought Visions of Coleus Violet now, which you could also bring the EX Unbound Kyokyo, and he would actually maybe work a little better? I don't know. You have options here. So because we have Visions of Coleus Violet, we can convert turn 1, which works very, very well. Some things that you can't use here, the magic resistance down debuff from Veldora when you use his green buff skill, it's going to give one of them a magic resistance buff. Not a super huge deal, but you do have to use that green buff because greens are nerfed on this stage. So just don't use it on your nuke turn, and because you'll just help them survive a little bit better. But there's turn 1. We've got a lot of protection gauge. Cool. We've got a double Velzard now. The hero is herself a triple orb sealer, so we can bring her in for Violet and steal, and then stack, boom, and, well, actually, no, we can't do both stacks, because we got to use Veldora's green buff first off. So we'll take out Rimuru, we'll use the green buff. You can see there's the reverse effect, so now Shuna has that little tiny bit of magic resistance. Not a super huge deal, just don't hit her, and it'll fall off. So, converted with Velzard, sending these, 29,000 damage, and it's fairly good. You can use her AoE skill here, and it would actually work fairly well on the nuke if she doesn't kill outright. So that's the thing. If your hero is maybe not as strong as mine, then using the AoE skill with all the magic buffs and attack buffs and everything, that will do good damage. So here, we're going to Rainbow ult swap with Rimuru. We'll get 2 stacks in for Lumi. We'll Velzard again. We're going to nuke on turn 5 with this team. That way we can hold one of the buffs. So there is that. We're sending the damage now on Frey. We are pretty set up now. Hero has her EX ult. She's good to go. So we can use the attack buff and a few more stacks of the Lumi buffs. And then on turn 5, we can use like the Violet buff or something. So boom, boom, and attack buff. Yep, cool. And then we will just send both of them away. Since we've already used the Rainbow ult swap once, we can't do it again. So Hero's out, and then Rimuru's out. We have a lot of Velzard, so we're going to send it again. We don't have the green buff anymore, but it's not really that big of a deal. We only need 80 points now, minimum, to use the Violet buff. I mean, if you can get more and you could use another stack of Lumi somewhere, then great, but might be a bit expensive. But now it's going to be turn 5. This is the quote-unquote nuke turn for a burst team, so we are ready to go with that free 30 points that Velzard gives. We are just over that cap, and now we can use the Violet buff, and I guess we can bring in Rimuru as well, and he can be in like a sub-DPS character. We are getting extra damage against water enemies, though, so that's good. So Rimuru will be super weak point, but magic buffed, and now let's send it, and the hero does 1.2 million. So there we go. I mean, that's the type advantage plus the extra damage from the Protector, doing about the same amount of damage as the Frieren team, right? But we have a little bit extra stuff going for us. And I think this is a fairly doable team. So again, Violet, kind of important for turn 1, but you can get away with not using her. Instead, you could bring Kyoko or something. Octogram Lumi, maybe a crit damage character. Rimuru, another crit activating character, potentially. You know, there are things you can do, but missing out on an alt swapper does mean you're gonna have to like fish a bit on turn 3 or something, but EC can get it done. Okay, so now we're gonna go with a physical blue crit team, but we're gonna focus on the old 1.5 anniversary Warriors Mind team. So this does work, you know, for EX2. You're going to be AoE nuking with Lumi and Violet, though. Not so much single targets with Rimuru and Guy like the team was meant to do in its own beatdown battle. Velzard, the Fount of Wisdom Rimuru's here, 1 for the turn 1 orb change, and 2 because his physical buff is going to be better than Lumi's. Because Lumi, after turn 8, you get that extra crit resistance down, which in turn makes it better than Rimuru, but we can't debuff the enemy. And we're also going to go on turn 7, so we're not going to be able to activate that anyways. Not that we would. So Rimuru's here for orb changing and that buff. Guy buffing, Rimuru alt rushing and alt swapping, and then Violet, you know, we can use her crit damage skill early and then hold on to it and let the alt resistance part of that fall off. And that's fine. That's what we're probably going to have to do, because we're going to get alt and guaranteed crits, the attack, the physical stuff. It's all going to work. You just got to play around it. Okay, so turn 1, convert with Rimuru, doing double duty here. Guy is only changing 2 greens and 1 orange, so we can't really use him. If you don't have Rimuru, you don't want to bring Rimuru, you can bring the free-to-play Xion. She changes oranges, and she's got that permanent stacking crit damage, which can also work very well. But you still need Guy here, you still need his converts. This, we can make it work because we have Guy and Violet in the back, so we could bring Violet in for somebody, doesn't really matter who, probably Rimuru, yep. And then we'll convert with her, and then we'll convert with Guy. That'll give us the full hand of blues, and then we can get a double stack on our 2 AoE characters, Lumi and Violet. Now, getting orbs for them, not really that big of an issue. I'd rather actually get orbs for somebody else, because we have the ability to alt rush with that evil Rimuru, based on the number of stacks we can get with Protector Velzard. So the more stacks we get, the more alt rush we get, up to like a full bar once you use them 6 or 7 times. I can't remember what it starts at, but here, convert, and then we have just enough to use Rimuru's convert. That was a really bad hand, but we just have so much conversion that it can work out. We'll bring Rimuru back in because he's turn 2 protection gauge, so it's going to be turn 4 next turn. And it's just stacking. The more stacks you get, the Violet is skill fused, so her buff is going to be slightly stronger. She gets like an extra 10% crit damage. She gets a lot of extra alt resistance down, but we can't use that here. So, her skill fusion, not super important. Rimuru is skill fused on his orb change, so he can convert any 2 colors, which is helpful. Guy is not skill fused on his orb change, because it would actually hurt us here, because he's doing crit resistance down, I believe, and that's a debuff, which would turn into a buff. And we're focused on critting, so making them resistant to crits, not something I'm in for. Lumi, on the other hand, she is not skill fused. It would make her gimmick skill, the extra protector, it would make it cheaper, and would give you a lot more gauge on blue orbs, which is cool, but also, it's not super necessary. We don't really use that Lumi very often for her gimmick, so I don't really feel like putting resources into her for one fight every 6 months or something that I use her. But let's bring this in. This actually turned out really well, because we already have a Lumi alt. We have 5 orbs for Violet now, which we can just self-convert away. And then, we're looking pretty good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of gauge. And then we'll bring not Warriors Mind, but Fount of Wisdom Rimuru in. And because he also has that 20% debuff physical resistance, we have to use that skill early too, because we just don't want to make them any stronger than what they already are. So here we go, both EX alts, because we used the alt rush ability last turn. Now we're pretty much ready to go, 390 points. Let's use the gimmick skill. So I think I misplay here and I only use it twice. We're going to find out if I did that or not. Oh no, okay, we're fine. I thought I misplayed when I was recording this, but let's go with the physical buff. Technically, right here, I misplay now because I should have used the violet crit buff before swapping everybody out, because we don't want the physical resistance and we don't want the alt resistance on turn 7. So I should have done the crit buff while Lumi was still up front and then swapped both of them away. But it's still going to work out. But here, full hand of blues, we'll send these 2 alts because it doesn't matter, we don't care about their damage. And then turn 7 is where we will nuke with our AoE characters. It's just that one of them is missing crit damage, which would have ensured that we had killed on the nukes, but they get a little bit lucky, and then we get a little lucky. So, turn 7 kicks in, cool. They do have a little bit of extra defense, that's from somebody's trait, not a big deal. But we'll bring our 2 characters in, we just have to use the Guy buff now, and that's the only thing we have to use because the physical Lumi buff is being overshadowed by Rimru's, so that's not very important. And we'll send these, and so Violet, 472, Lumi without the crit, 359 and almost kills, and then Guy finishes the fight. So, Warrior's Mind can definitely get the job done. If you don't have Rimuru, could be a little bit more difficult. I mean, you still have a physical buff, so you'd still get that, and you could just bring the Warrior's Mind Shion or something. But, you know, having a turn 1 orb changer on this blue team is very important. Okay, the last team I have for you is going to be Primal Demon focused. So we've got Violet, Diablo, Free-to-Play Misery, and then we've put some other characters on here. Divine General Rimuru, Raphael, because of the space attack, essentially. That's pretty much the only reason. I mean, you can use a few of his other, small stacks. They will get very expensive, though, but it is at least buffing the ult damage. Plus, we've got Guy, who's converting, plus giving us guaranteed crits, plus ult damage, and then Rieger is ult swapping and being our orange orb changer on top of what Misery is doing, because she's only doing Primal Demon orbs, and there's only 2 of them. So, it does work. It's not super duper pretty, but it is something. So, turn 1, I mean, you could potentially bring Misery and Diablo in and use Misery's convert, but, I mean, we have Rieger up front already, so we'll just use his convert turn 1. It's, whatever. It is whatever. The problem with using Misery's orb change is that it puts a Pierce resistance debuff on the enemy, which is going to be a Pierce buff. And because Diablo is giving everybody Pierce when he uses his big physical buff, we don't really want to use Misery's orb change too often, because we don't want to make them any stronger than what they already are. So, turn 2, we got very lucky, only green orbs, so Diablo can take care of all of those, nice, easy. And then we just need to stack. And Diablo, first and foremost, is our DPS character. He's getting the space attack from Raphael. Misery, is AoE, so you can use her as well. If you don't have Raphael, I mean, you could bring Autogram Lumi, the AoE buff and the ult damage. We used her during the Primal Demon meta, and she worked out very well. So that's definitely an option. I mean, I guess you could bring, Commander Shizu? Because you'd still be getting the physical buff, but instead of getting the Pierce, which doesn't really help, you'd get the EX ult damage, and you'd get a dedicated converter to oranges. If you have access to that, maybe a better option than Raphael, maybe? So you could maybe take out Misery and Raphael and put an Autogram Lumi in Commander Shizu, and I think it would work fine. You would still have a double ult converter in Rieger. It's just you're going to be missing a few stacks of the ult damage from Raphael and the space attack, which hopefully you can make up by having the EX ult damage and the extra permanent ult and the AoE. So maybe that's actually a better team to run. But hey, I built this, I recorded it, so we're going to go ahead and use it. That's a perfect Guy convert right there. And yeah, it's just, you're going to stack. You're still going to shoot for turn 7 because they get a little bit too strong. on turn 8 and they'll probably kill a couple people. But Misery does have type advantage, which is like something that's good. But again, she's not getting super duper buff. Like, she'll get the physical buff, she'll get the ult and the crit, but she's not going to get the space buff because, you know, she's not a space character. And she also doesn't have an EX ult. She's a free-to-play character, so she's not... Like, yes, she's an AoE win character, but she's definitely not the focus of this team. She is not the one who is meant to do the damage. So, but you can send her normal orbs because she's permanently getting her attack stacked up, right? So she does hit harder than Diablo would. Leading up to turn 7, which is fine. But here, I mean, we've used a few stacks of Raphael. It does get very expensive. This is not a reset team, so after a while it's going to cost 80 to 100 points to use that. And then it's, you know, is it really worth it? But there we go. So there's the trait for the defense. Okay, this hand technically does work, so we'll alt swap one there. We'll get a double stack on. And then we'll send Misery away, because we only have one orange, which means we can use Rieger first off. And that's a lot more important than using Misery's Convert, which, like, you can see we have not touched yet, because I just don't want to. In the event that we do Pierce, because it's a 50-50 shot, I don't want to make them more resistant to it. So, plus we have, like, Pierce resist, or we have Pierce power down, so, like, we're already going to be in a hole if we Pierce, and we don't want to put ourselves even deeper into that hole. But turn 7 is coming up. We are pretty much ready to go right now. I think, use Misery's Orb Change, because I know I've been talking about it not using it this entire time, but I do want that full 6-hand send, and we're just going to bank on us maybe not piercing on the nuke. So Misery comes in. Okay, we've used the space buff, so that only applies to Diablo anyway, so we'll use the physical buff, the ult, and the guaranteed crits. And then we have 98 points, so I mean, I guess we could, I guess we do that instead, never mind. We don't, no, there we go. There's the Pierce. So now, one more stack of Violet, and then we could AoE ult, and then have some follow-up orbs, but Diablo just kills. And even if we did Pierce, and we still killed them. So, pretty lucky there, but that team can certainly get it done. So I know it's a long video, but there's 5 teams of varying different styles that you could use to take on this EX2 Beatdown Battle. Again, part 2 tomorrow will come out, and it'll be Himmel leading a whole bunch of wind characters of varying team builds. So if that's what you need, then stay tuned for that. And then I think I have actually one more video for this using free-to-play protectors. Fun, right? But if you beat this with a different team that I didn't show off today, that's not a Himmel that I'm going to use tomorrow, please put your team comp in the comments below, that way other people can see that. But that's it for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.